Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Really welcome back to Horror Analysis with me, Drew. Yeah, it's been a while since I've made a video. 2 weeks. And then, well, it's April now. The last video that in order is December, early December. And it's early April now. So I've actually been doing this for about a year now. Woohoo! Happy anniversary to me. So we finished Horror Anthropology. I did another standalone video about Fusion. That's what I did a couple of weeks ago. Last week? No, a couple of weeks ago. It was in March. And now we're on to Section E. Well, my computer crashed and I lost all my old pictures, but I remember there was Section E because I've been uploading them. My computer crashed twice. I don't think this laptop's long for this world. But I'll get through the series with it anyway. Section E, non-narrative horror. Where are my notes? There they are. Okay, so non-narrative horror, which is it's really a misnomer. Okay, yeah. Non-narrative horror. Horror poetry, horror music, horror painting, horror sculpture, horror architecture, horror games, things that are not story, except really they are. Non-narrative horror. Let's go over what narrative horror would be. Narrative horror is movies, stories, novels, short stories, which are narratives, which are stories. Narrative means story. I think for the most part. I don't know what's the actual dictionary definition of narrative. But anyway, I don't even know if my computer will be able to hold up if I'm looking up things and recording definition. It's going to say story. I know it's going to say story. A narrated account, a story. Process of narrating. Consists of or characterized by the telling of a story. Okay. A narrator is someone who tells the story, right? So, a narrative is a story. We knew this. It's pretty easy. Everybody understands narrative, essentially. Problem when we get to non-narrative horror, which is, I'm putting air quotes on it because it's a fake. Like, they're part of the story. I mean, non-narrative horror might be horror cinematography, but that's part of a story. If we were talking about the filming of a movie, horror cinematography might be, not necessarily horror, but it's definitely part of a story. When I get into horror visual arts, which is this video is going to be the intro, and I'm going to go over sculpture and architecture, which are the smallest parts. Horror visual arts, most of them are, paintings. A lot of paintings are going to be, this is an illustration of a story, a scene. This is the scene of, the Bible story of blah blah blah, or the story of so and so. The Renaissance and the whatever big painters that people know. They might have done a scene from a Bible, or they might have done a scene of Zeus and Apollo or whatever. They're doing scenes from stories. It's an illustration. I'm sure they won't like me saying that, but it's true in this sense. When we're talking about what they do that would be characterized as horror, one of the big ones being Judith and Holofernes. I don't know if I'm pronouncing any of that correctly. It's a scene from a biblical story. I had to look up Judith and Holofernes today. And it's not a biblical story, it's a deuterocanonical book. The Book of Judith is not exactly apocrypha, it's not exactly biblical, it's deuterocanonical. Judith's slaying of Holofernes, or Holofernes, is going to come up a lot. Pretty much every major painter has done one. Lots of sculptors have done one. I had one for Donatello earlier. But they're illustrating the scene from the Book of Judith, where she cuts off his head. Caravaggio did a very bloody one. So tomorrow, next video, when I go over painting, I'll show Caravaggio's one. Crap, I wanted to go into a lot of stuff. But, problem is, with this non-narrative horror, they're part of a story, they're illustrations of a story, they're telling a story. Poems, and by extension, lyrical music, are going to be telling a story. I think all the poems I have to go over are narrative poems. Narrative poetry is a storytelling poetry. The Erlkönig is certainly Fitzjames O'Brien's The Demon of the Gibbet tells a story. It's essentially the same story as the Erlkönig. It's just a different bad guy and a different victim. Coleridge, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, or Coleridge, Christabel. Not so much Kubla Khan. I like the second stanza of Kubla Khan, Xanadu, or whatever it's called. The woman wailing for a demon lover. That's not a obvious story. It's just sort of lyrical. But it illustrates not a story that's been written before. Nor has, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner was an original to Coleridge, as far as I know. And so was Christabel. Christabel definitely was. But they're still telling a story. Some of these sculptors from the modern era, these contemporary, like I saw them on Huffington Post, and Huffington Post was saying, hey, these guys are new, check them out, they're creepy. And I was like, okay, I like creepy. But, they're not illustrating a story, but when you look at them, you get a story in your head. It's like, oh, that's really twisted. What's the story behind that? And you make one up in your head. It might not be what the artist was going for, but who cares? This is where I was going to go into contextualism, and I don't really know how deeply I'll go into contextualism, but, when I go into one of the videos is going to be on games. Horror video games is going to be one of the videos, and horror tabletop games. Horror video games are narrative. They are storytelling. A zombie plague breaks out. You're the guy with the gun trying to shoot the zombies to survive. It's a story. You're the character in the story. We're playing the character in the story. This is Resident Evil. This is Left 4 Dead. This is many, many, many horror video games. Or demons, or Dracula, or vampires, or werewolves. Any of that is going to be narrative. It's going to be telling a story, and to continue the story, you have to beat the level. but most people don't think of video games as narrative. Tabletop games, which is going to be another video, they literally call themselves, White Wolf literally calls themselves storytelling games. We'll go over White Wolf as one of the videos as well. And Peter Jackson, who does the Cthulhu, who incorporates into his games Cthulhu. Steven Jackson? Peter Jackson. No, Peter Jackson's the director. What did I say? I'm all confused. Hold on. What is this doing up? Where's Buttercup? Steven Jackson's GURPS incorporates Cthulhu into his games. So horrific, but still storytelling. Songs, music is going to be the same. It's lyrical songs. It's going to be the same thing. Instrumentals. There's a case to be made there that horrific instrumental music isn't storytelling. I don't think I buy that argument. The argument could be made. If someone wants to make that argument convincing, go for it. But I mean, it's one of those things like talking about is a novel horror, or is it just atmospheric? Well, it depends on the novel. With music, if it's not lyrical, I don't know if it will transcend atmospheric. There's atmospheric music to horror. One of my buddies really liked horror soundtracks, and she'd play them on occasion. Exorcist, Halloween. You'd go through the horror soundtracks. They weren't scary in and of themselves. They weren't scary until you thought, okay, Michael Myers is right around the corner, or Regan's gonna twist her head around. They're atmospheric, way atmospheric. I don't think the kid is creepy. I mean, there's creepy music out there, creepy noises. So I don't necessarily buy that non-narrative horror is really non-narrative. I think there's a lot of context. If it's these old paintings illustrating a scene from the Bible, or a scene from ancient mythology, Greek mythology, or Goya illustrating, is it here? No. Goya illustrating a scene from something historical, like a scene from the Spanish Civil War. Soldiers shooting people, and blood, darkness, and whatever. What I had was, if it's sculpture or painting, it's either an illustration of a story, biblical, fiction, or historical. You could see a book cover of... Do I have a book cover? I don't think I do. Oh yeah, well here's a Frankenstein book. I've shown you this one before. This painting or illustration could be considered horrific because it's of Frankenstein, of Frankenstein's monster. Go to your horror section and look at the covers of any of your horror people. You'll probably see a painting or a depiction of something horrific. But it's narrative because it's illustrating part of a story. Or it could be biblical if it's Judith and Holofernes, where the woman cuts the guy's head off in varying... This is Donatello's, in varying states of... varying graphicnesses. Caravaggio's pretty graphic. A lot of blood spurting. Had the blood spurting out. It was that scene. The lady from 1632. Gentilemici. I'm a 1632 fan by Eric Flint, and he introduces a female artist who was painting in the 1630s, and she did a Judith and Holofernes, and that was pretty graphic too. It's the knife's there, or there, going through the guy's neck. It's a decapitation scene. It wasn't a blood spurt like Caravaggio, it was a blood trickle down the sheets deal. Still, I don't like neck things. Neck things freak me out. Hangings, neck slitting, it's not fun. I get creeped out by that a lot. So maybe it's just more horrific for me, but I'm the one to make a video, so whatever. Okay. One that's going to be pretty much non-narrative at first would be horror architecture. And you think, horror architecture? What are you thinking about, Drew? Well, that's the first thing I'm going to go over today. I can't think of much horror architecture. Of course, haunted houses, of course. But, that's the story part. And haunted houses don't really exist. And unless you're, if you're really into stuff, you can say they do. But I've been freaked out in houses before and think, oh crap, something's after me. But it's my brain. It's my brain playing tricks. I don't really think they're haunted. I got out of the house pretty quick, but I'm a chicken. So I wanted to go over horror architecture. Now, this will bring me into contextualism, so I'll get into that. This I also saw on Winchester, on Huffington Post. Huffington Post said that the Winchester Mystery House is going to have sleepovers now. I think it's San Jose. In San Jose, California, there's the Winchester Mystery House. The heiress of the Winchester Gun Company, the good old-fashioned, what the cowboys used Winchesters, somehow got the idea into head that the ghosts of all the people that were killed by the guns were after her. So she consulted a medium or something along those lines, and the medium said, well, yeah, just build a bunch of extensions onto your house so the ghosts get lost. So she did. She built a 160-roomed house, the Winchester Mystery House. It is sprawling, as you could probably tell. Not only does it have 160 rooms to get lost in, it has doors opening up to brick walls, stairways going up to nothingness, just into the ceiling. There's a better picture. I mean, that's creepy. It's a designed, what's it called? What do I call it? Designed bad place. If bad place is what the haunted houses are. Again, I'm getting creeped out and I have to check over my shoulder like every 3 seconds. Yeah. So, if bad places are what haunted houses are, or haunted graveyards, haunted subway stations, haunted churches, haunted fill in the blank, hotel rooms, hotels, etc. We went over bad place before. This is a designed one, and not in the House Next Door. What's her name? House Next Door. Who did House Next Door? Luckily, I have Dance Macabre here. Who did House Next Door? 281. Page number 281. Oh, this is Chowder Society. Da 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 da. Okay. House Next Door was by. No, no, no. Come on now. Oh, Anne Rivers Siddons. I knew that. Anne Rivers Siddons did The House Next Door, and it was a new house. This one is not a new house because Winchester died long, long time ago. Right. So she died a long, long time ago. Anne Rivers Siddons was a new house. So this one lady was trying to design a house to escape ghosts. Anne Rivers Siddons wrote a book about a house that was built that ended up being haunted right off the mark. Maybe the place was the forest that it was before was haunted right off the mark. Don't know. Anyway, so this one with the stairways to nowhere, the doors opening up into the bricks, and just the sprawling, get lost in rooms, could be considered a bad place. But without the story of the lady who thinks that the ghosts are after her, so she has a contractor, and since she was a Winchester heiress, or maybe the wife of, I don't remember, she could just pay a contractor to build rooms 365 days a year, or holidays or whatever, but pretty much every day. There was another. Codicil, or an alternate theory. Codicil's not the right word.
Alternate theory that she was just building rooms under that pretext to make the company go broke because she didn't like the fact that they're a gun manufacturer. Pardon me. In which case she did succeeded because the company did go broke. And she spent, was it $1 million a year on this? And we're talking way back, so that was a lot of money. I don't remember the full details of the story, but depending on whatever theory it is, it's a creepy place. Is it horror architecture? Oh, who knows? I don't know what the definition of horror architecture would be. But if you have the story of ghosts chasing her and she has to keep building, it becomes kind of horrific. Maybe not a great story. Depending on who's telling it too. I'm not the best, but is it the story that's horror, or is it the house that's horror? I can't say it's the house that's horror by itself. House is weird by itself. In the terms of name some weird houses, that's going to be at the top of the list. But scary houses, I don't know. So the thing is, context. Contextualism is this thing in lots of philosophy. How much context are you going to bring into this? And in art, it gets weird too. How much does the audience need to know for it to make sense to them? How much is the artist responsible for dumbing down their work for the audience to get? These are questions that come up a lot with contextualism. Ceci n'est pas un pipe. Does that make any sense if you don't speak French? No. But is a painting, how much context do you even put into the painting? Because even if you know what it's supposed to mean in French, you get a lot of context to get the point of the painting. You need some context to get the point of the painting. And a lot of other things, like Judith and Holofernes. If you don't know that book of the Bible, and since I was a Protestant raised, we didn't know to have the book of Judith. It's a Catholic thing. So I didn't know Judith beheading Holofernes. I didn't know if it was biblical or mythological or what. And I didn't know the story at all until I looked it up tonight. I knew some of the paintings, but I didn't know the story until I decided to look it up tonight. Rodin's The Gates of Hell. Okay, if you're a non-Christian, does that make any sense? If you don't know anything about Rodin, does that point that the fact that the thinkers at the top of it make any sense? There's a lot of contextual stuff, or the burghers of whatever city. Not horror, but it's a weird story because they all have nooses around their necks, and they're walking around, sad or angry or defiant, or in whatever cases. Burghers of... I'm not going to think of it. Anyway, how much context do you put in this? I'm rambling now. How much context do you need? I don't know the answers. For the most part, I'm anti-contextual, which in some philosophies is called invariantism. The more, if you need 12 paragraphs of explanation per painting, you're doing something wrong. The artist is doing something wrong. These little placards underneath. Oh, I'm going to go on a rant here. These placards underneath. There's the title of the painting next to the painting, and then there's a placard explaining it. Sometimes the placards are like this, and you have a little paragraph of, oh, this is the artist. He was born in whatever time. And this is his depiction of the story of Judith at Holofernes from the Bible. Then you get you get it on that sort of placard, and then you get the placards that are this big, and then this big, and then you got to read this friggin' essay to understand what the heck this painting is. Well, if you have to read that much and understand that much, there's something lacking in the painting itself. That's all I'm saying. I don't think that's an unreasonable assertion. It's too contextual. I'm okay with some context. Some people might be completely anti-context, but you need some context. Okay, so does the story of, Mrs. Winchester, or Miss Winchester, whichever it is, make the thing a horror architecture? Oh, that's a question. It's a story at that point. If you have the story, then the story is horror, not the house itself. So I don't know if you get it. If you get the story good enough, it's a narrative. If it's not, I don't think it comes as horror. Atmospheric, creepy, maybe. Let's go on to sculpture. The classic sculptures. This is Donatello's Judith and Holofernes. We've been over the story a couple times. There's a pigeon on her head in this picture. That's not part of the sculpture. Donatello didn't design that part. She's raising the sword to cut off the guy's head. So, pre-head cutting, I would not call it horror myself, but it's one of the few sculptural depictions. There's the before and after pictures, and sometimes there's the during pictures. There's lots of pictures of the woman holding up a head, by the hair, and there's no neck, or there's a cut neck, and there's no body, I suppose. Those are the after pictures. This is the before picture. And there's some during pictures like Caravaggio and Gentilsimi. I want to know her name. Artesmia Gentilsimi. I'm destroying that, aren't I? Artesmia. Artemisia Gentileschi. And it's Judith Holofernes. Judith slaying Holofernes. Yeah, that's definitely a During picture. Ooh, I like it. I'm going to have to save this one for next video, because it's a painting. Save image. Up. Okay, so save. Okay. Artemisia Gentileschi or something. Right. But I like that one. So there's the during and the before and after. We got it. This is the oldest of the horror sculptures. Again, it's not really horror, and it's not really non-narrative. We'll go on to the next most recent, which is 19th/20th century. It's Rodin, one of the greatest sculptors ever. Possibly the greatest, depending on who you ask. Gates of Hell. Gates of Hell is not non-narrative either. You need to know something about hell. You have to have context in this. And it's probably, you need to know it's an illustration from Dante Alighieri. Divine Comedy, The Inferno. Couple different ones here. He worked on this for 25 years or thereabouts. Here's a good detail picture. Gates of Hell. Obviously, you need to know something about hell and having gates on hell, which is weird. Context is necessary, of course, there. And it's probably better to have the context of Dante Alighieri as well, at which point it's an illustration. It's a 3D illustration. That's what this sculpture is, but yeah. Now, the next two don't come from stories. Next two artists, Francesco Albana and Chu Zhuang, if I'm pronouncing either of those correctly. They're both very contemporary, like as in, well, probably 2013 is when they were showing these works. Oh, pardon me. Finish off my water. 2013 is when they're showing these works. And they're not based on any story. But when you look at them, you come up with a story on your own. Or I do, anyway. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe these are non-narrative horror. Or non-narrative creepiness. I don't say they're horrific. They might be. To some people, they're creepy, but... let's go with Chu Zhuang first. I'll try to put this link in an actual link, if I can figure that one out. Let's see what we got. I forget what the titles are of these. Maybe I'll put them underneath as well. No, that's not a very good picture. That's better. This is a good one. It's decapitated heads or heads or faces. It's a Korean artist, I believe. But some of the faces are sad, and some of the faces are scared and whatnot. These are, they're disquieting, I guess is the proper term for them. Disquieting. This is my favorite, though. This is like angel wings. Um, oh shoot, I forgot about Geiger or Giger. Angel wings made of hands. Here's a detailed, and that is very realistic. That's hyper realistic hands. Um, you know, non disembodied hands. I forgot about Giger. HR Giger. I don't know how to spell his or pronounce his name. Geiger. H HR Geiger. He's the guy who Hans Rudolf Geiger. He's a surrealist painter, sculptor, and set designer. He was part of the special effects team that won the Academy Award for the best achievement in visual effects for the design work in the film Alien. So, Alien. You know Alien. Is he dead? No, he's still alive. He's 74. Cool. Good for him. He does a lot. I'll go over him tomorrow. I gotta remember to put him on my notes for Giger. Oh, he's on my notes for painting. He's not on my notes for sculpture. He does do 3D sculpture as well. But I forgot about him. Sorry, Geiger. Giger. Does it say how to pronounce his name on here? Geiger. According to Wikipedia. How well you can trust Wikipedia, but there you go. And then the last guy I want to go over, Francesco Albana. The skin sculptures. And these are kind of disquieting as well. I don't know if they're horrific. It's like sort of a skin going through a cage. Disquieting. That's cool. Oops, I forgot a couple there. Sorry. Like coming out of a tub or a urinal, but it's just a skin. The mouth at the top there, fingers. Is that a navel or a penis? I'm not sure. I like that. And here's a different view of it. So sort of skin being skin without internal stuff. But when you look at this one, there's not a. It's horrific. I think it's horrific. But I get a story out of that. I'm making a story in my head as I come along with that. As I'm going along. The angel wings. I could see this more as a prop for a movie. That would be fantastic. An angel swooping down with these as wings, or a demonic angel swooping down with these as wings. Oh, gotta sit up straight, Drew. That's great. Or you see this in a movie as part of a set piece. Actually animated animatronic thing of this chewing on whatever those body parts of unhuman things. It's very elder god, eldritch, Lovecraftian feel to it. Which means I'm coming up with a story, and it's a Lovecraftian story in my head. These are more of the cinema budget Constantine, I guess. This is the Constantine feel. The Keanu Reeves Constantine movie. Who was the angel in that? Whoever it was fantastic. Who was the angel in the Constantine movie? I gotta look it up. IMDb, here I come. Alright. If they did a sequel to Constantine, they could get Chu Zhuang to do it. Tilda Swinton. Of course it was Tilda Swinton. She's fantastic. Man, alright, yeah. So Tilda Swinton, you could definitely see a demonic angel coming down with the hands. In this one, that's right out of, Pan's Labyrinth, Guillermo del Toro. This one as well. I don't know what that would come up, but I mean, this is, I don't know what that would be. But I don't see it as non-narrative. I see it as, okay, these are set pieces, an illustration of a movie a story that hasn't been made yet. Personally, I could be wrong. I mean, your interpretation of that might not be, but I don't see that as, if there's no story behind it, I don't see it as horrific. This is close, but I'm getting a story behind that because it strikes me as Lovecraftian, and I'm getting context. I think that's as close as you can get to be non-contextual horror, or non-contextual. That is horrific, no matter what your context is. You have to have the context of what a human skull looks like, and that's definitely cyclopic. And that stuff that he's eating is skinny, but not skin-esque, but not human. Anyway, so folks, hopefully we got started on non-narrative horror. We discussed what narrative stuff is and how I don't really see it as, this non-narrative horror stuff I'm going to go over isn't really non-narrative. Anyway, so 42 minutes. I'm going to call it there. I'll see you next time, guys, on Horror Analysis. We'll continue with Section E, non-narrative horror. My name is Drew. Thanks for watching Horror Analysis.